It's interesting looking at these Game of the Year awards and seeing the backlash to certain things like Hogwarts Legacy and Starfield getting snubbed. But there is a game that came out this year that was supposed to be the Game of the Year, that was supposed to be a contender, that was supposed to be a big deal, that didn't get nominated for much of anything other than Best Action Game. And nobody really seems to be talking about it or addressing it at all. Nobody's upset that this game bombed. And I could not be happier, right? Forget like all the stuff that did get nominated that is getting pushed to the forefront. There is a game that deserved to fail, that needed to fail, and we are seeing that now happen in real time. And now that the hype period is over, nobody is talking about it, nobody remembers it, nobody is playing it, right? Armored Core 6, the flop from FromSlop, right? The game that was supposed to be the follow-up to Elden Ring. I believe From Software's highest selling game ever, a game that still sold less than Breath of Tears of the Kingdom. The game that was supposed to usher in a new age of mecha experiences, the game that was supposed to bring Armored Core back to the forefront, the game that was supposed to prove that From Software could make something other than endless Dark Souls rehashes, right? The game that was supposed to bring about a glorious return, a glorious next stage for non-Nintendo platforms. This was supposed to be one of the best action games ever made, right? It was supposed to be extremely difficult. It was supposed to have a compelling narrative. It was supposed to be one of the best games ever made, right? It was supposed to be a big deal. And nobody cares, right? When the best thing anybody has to say about your game is that like it's not Dark Souls 5, when the best thing that anybody has to say is that like, well, it's not just Elden Ring again. Like when all the publisher is like announcing how disappointed they are in the performance, when the fans like are picking out one build and sticking with it throughout the entire experience, when everyone's breezing through the entire game, when like the game has had no impact at all, bone deep that the game was a failure, right? In spite of all that hype, in spite of all that enthusiasm, in spite of all of that, the whole Elden Ring thing, From Software was not able to put out another Dark Souls phenomenon. And this is probably going to be the most popular that Armored Core ever becomes, purely because it was writing off the hype of Elden Ring, right? It's over, right? There are no other franchises in From Software's portfolio that they can bring back to get the kind of enthusiasm that they got from Armored Core 6. There's nothing else they can do. They can't make new IPs that aren't Souls adjacent. They can't innovate. They can't do anything. The only thing that anybody wants to see from them is endless Dark Souls games. They want that imagery ripped off straight from Berserk. They want that slow, boring combat, that Zelda surpassed a long time ago. Actually, like innovated to begin with. Like they want that boring, convoluted lore that YouTubers have to like fabricate out of whole cloth because the actual game doesn't very gonna do a very good job of it at explaining it to you, right? You have to, you know, people endlessly want to run around Anne Orlando and like just fight the same boring generic enemies over and over again with no real innovation, no real change, no real evolution, right? They don't want anything to change, because the Age of Fire is coming to an end, and so like in order to prolong it, in order to keep the Dark Souls formula going, in order to keep up this illusion that Dark Souls is an innovative, amazing RPG franchise, people are just gonna get excited. They're just gonna froth at the mouth for every Souls-like game that gets made. Even if it's not made by From Software. Looking at you, Lives of P. Like we are in, these guys are true fanatics in the sense where they really don't admit that FromSoft, that the Souls formula has any problems at all, right? These guys don't admit that these games aren't perfect. These guys will just blindly consume any Souls project that's like thrown to them, right? They're like dogs in a cage that are like starving, of good content, right? Of good healthy meat, right? And so like someone, some girl who doesn't know what she's doing like throws you some scraps and you like just devour it. Meanwhile, like the Nintendo fans are in the mansion just feasting on like these full course meals. Like we have the entire family together. We've like compiled all our recipes. We have all these people coming together to make something like truly great, and then we just enjoy it together, right? Meanwhile, while just outside, you guys are fighting over scraps, right? That is the From Software community, right? That is the Dark Souls community. That is the group of people who are still whining about Bloodborne not being on PC, right? That is the group of people who seriously tried to convince you that Elden Ring was not only the best game of 2022, but that it was like one of the best games ever made, period, right? That it was like a good game in general, right? Like, complete delusion, like on all of their parts, right? It it was absurd. Okay, seeing just how much people worshipped Elden Ring and just how much they hyped that up and like pretended as if like Zelda was scared of it. That was a narrative being pushed at the time, that Zelda was delayed so it wouldn't have to compete with Elden Ring. Like it was a complete joke, right? It wasn't true at all, right? But a lot of these people genuinely believe this stuff. A lot of these people really believe that Nintendo can't compete with FromSoft. A company that can only produce one game. It's embarrassing, honestly. It's just like, why would anybody be concerned about FromSoft going forward? Like, if anything, they really should be putting out games on Switch anyway. But like, they still haven't. Like, I can guarantee you, Elden Ring could run on Switch, but they're still refusing to port it over. Like, when it does get released, it's gonna be like another Witcher 3 situation in which nobody will care because the game isn't that good. Right? That is the situation we're in right now, where we're in this we're in this weird situation where nobody wants to admit that FromSlop cannot produce anything that isn't a Dark Souls game. Like they have to lean into the Dark Souls thing in order to get any kind of interest or enthusiasm at all, right? Elden Ring wasn't super popular or successful, but like I don't think there's any denying that it was way better than Armor Core 6. Like I don't think there was any denying that Armor Core just fell off immediately after people realized how to exploit the customization options. You just know the vast majority of the player base just went like, okay, I'm just gonna get the best build, and then like I'm just gonna go online, look like an FAQ, and then just get the best build, and then just blow through the game, right? That's what happened, right? That's what happened. Like it's crazy how a lot of people went into this game like thinking it was going to be a hard thing, that all the criticisms toward it would be like from game journalists who couldn't play it properly. But in reality, I don't think anybody liked playing the game. I don't think anybody enjoyed From Software at all, like From Slop's newest product at all. Like I think Armored Core 6 is exactly what I expected it to be, like a flash in the pan that nobody cares about or remembers, not even a couple of months after release.